The cafeteria was loud with laughter and casual talk, a place where uniforms mixed with coffee cups and medals caught glimmers of sunlight from the high windows. But at one small corner table, a woman sat quietly, her back straight, her posture unshakable despite the weight of every whisper that floated her way. Her name was Captain Elise Morgan. To the younger recruits, she was just another face in a sea of veterans, her short-cropped hair streaked with silver and her calm eyes giving nothing away. The pin on her lapel, a small dark metal emblem shaped like wings encased in flame, caught the light in a way that made it impossible to ignore. And maybe that's why one young sergeant, new to the base and full of untested confidence, leaned over and muttered the words that would echo across the room. "That pin looks fake." The laughter around him died down a little. A few glanced away, uncomfortable, while others looked on with curiosity. Elise didn't move at first. She just placed her hand lightly over the pin, feeling the etched metal beneath her fingertips, a symbol that had cost her everything and given her nothing back except silence and memories. Then, before she could respond, heavy footsteps cut through the noise. A tall man in full uniform stopped near her table. The bars on his shoulder gleamed gold, and the quiet in his voice carried more weight than a shout ever could. The colonel looked at the sergeant and said, "Only 4 veterans have that pin. She's one of them." No one spoke after that. Elise's eyes stayed down on her coffee, but inside her mind old memories began to surface. The desert, the smoke, the sound of choppers against a sky too red to be real. Years ago, during Operation Solace, she was part of a classified rescue mission gone wrong. A dozen soldiers trapped behind enemy lines, a call that never reached command. They had written her team off as lost. But Elise didn't accept that. She was a combat pilot then, one of the first women assigned to fly into black zones without backup. For 3 days she navigated hostile airspace, relying only on instinct and a broken radio. On the 4th day she flew through a sandstorm that destroyed her engine, crash landing within reach of her wounded comrades. She dragged them out one by one, patching their wounds with torn sleeves, giving her own water, and holding her weapon through the night while the horizon burned. By dawn, only 4 were still alive. They were rescued the next day, but the mission stayed buried in silence. Too many political strings, too much risk, too much truth. The only recognition given was that small black pin, awarded to the 4 who survived the impossible. And Elise, she was the only pilot among them. Years had passed since then. The medals and commendations came and went, but that pin stayed on her jacket, not for glory, but as a silent reminder of those she couldn't save. Every time she touched it, she remembered the faces that didn't make it home. It wasn't fake. It was real in ways most people would never understand, forged in fire, sealed in blood, and carried through years of quiet grief. As the colonel's words hung in the air, the sergeant's face paled. He mumbled an apology, but Elise didn't need one. She simply looked up, her gaze calm but sharp, and nodded slightly. Not out of pride, but out of respect for those who had earned that same pin and never lived to wear it. The cafeteria stayed quiet for a long while after that. Some avoided eye contact. Others looked at her with new understanding. But Elise didn't want sympathy. She wanted them to remember that respect isn't given to the loudest voice in the room. It's earned in the silence after loss. That night she walked alone to the airfield, the cool wind brushing her face. The hangar stood still under a silver moon. She looked out over the runway, where she had once taken off into darkness, not knowing if she'd ever return. She closed her eyes, the distant hum of engines echoing faintly in her memory. Somewhere in the stars above, she liked to imagine that the ones she lost were still flying beside her, silent, steady, proud. She smiled faintly, touching the pin once more. It wasn't about medals. It wasn't about recognition. It was about duty, courage, and the kind of love for your team that makes you risk everything, even when no one's watching. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Legends of History, because every act of courage deserves to be remembered. And before you go, drop a comment below. Tell us what courage means to you.